Joining us today for General Election 2016, we have John Brady of Sinn Fein, Ann Ferris of the Labour Party, and Independent Joe Behan. You're all very welcome. Thank you for coming in. John, we haven't been speaking to you around the election time, so what are you standing on nationally and in particularly locally?
Well, I suppose nationally, Sinn Fein obviously have a big team in Leinster House. We want to go forward and increase our mandate and lead the next government, a progressive government that will, I suppose, create fairness, see a fairer recovery for people. And I suppose, having spoken to people right across the constituency, from Brady to Baltinglass, Blessenden, Rathvilly, Arklow, right across the constituency, many people are saying they've seen no recovery whatsoever. Indeed, things have gone into reverse mode. You talk to people who have disabled children not being able to get respite, or carers, autism, special needs services right across the board have been cut. So what I am standing for and what I want to put in place is a fairer recovery that helps out families that have been hit not just by this government of Fine Gael and Labour, but their predecessors in Fianna Fáil, imposing water charges, property taxes, and the litany of broken promises from this government, particularly the Labour Party, who said they would go in and stand up for ordinary working families. Indeed, there was posters in the run-up to the previous election not to cut child benefit, and that was one of many broken promises implemented by this. That's a huge list of
reversal of the cuts there. So are you happy that you would have the money to do all this?
Absolutely, and I suppose, and I hate using the dreaded word fiscal space, but it seems to be the buzzword that's circulating over the last number of weeks. And Sinn Féin were proven to be the only party to have got our figures right. Indeed, Labour...
The figures have changed now, John, since then, because a lot of the recovery was based on our euro-sterling relationship.
Absolutely.
It was 71, it's up to 78 now. So our exports are worth less, so it could be argued that we won't have as much, this is my first time saying it, by the way, fiscal space to actually do the things that have been planned by all the parties.
What Sinn Féin have said right from the outset, that fiscal space was 8.6 billion. Labour, Fine Gael, and indeed Fianna Fáil, and in fairness to them, they rode back on their initial
just
assessment.
On the principle of the money.
So there's 8.6 billion, and I think the RSI and everyone is saying that is the recognised figure, taken into account.
All right, but you're saying you have the money.
The money is there.
And where are you taking it from? Is it just purely growth, or are you taking it from somebody?
No. Well, we want to put in place a progressive and fair taxation system that lifts the burden off ordinary, low, middle-income families, by abolishing the property tax, abolishing water charges, and putting in place.
But you have to get it from somewhere apart from growth.
If you let me just make the point, I mean, the only people that will see an increase in their taxation will be high-end earners. We'll introduce a third tax band for anyone earning over €100,000, and they'll be asked to pay a marginal 7 cent in the euro increase on income over €100,000, and that will bring in an extra 1.5.
And you're happy we can get consultants for the hospital, happy to get leaders of industry from overseas to come into Ireland when they hear about this tax rate, and they'll say, Sinn Féin and government, they're charging us through the nose here.
Well, we're not charging through the nose. I mean, what we will put in place is a progressive and fair taxation system, similar to many other European and international countries. They have 3 tax bands that will tax the high-end earners. To ask them, and it's not about driving anyone away. It's about lifting the burden off ordinary working families who are, to the pin of their collar now. Between, I was speaking to an elderly lady down in Rathvilly last week, and she now has to make a decision as to whether to go and visit her elderly sick husband who had the medical card withdrawn from the Labour Fine Gael government, and she has to make a decision as to whether she can afford to pay the €2.50 prescription charges that again this government,
so she's under 70,
Labour increased from Fianna Fáil when they introduced it 50 cent initially. It's up to €2.50 now.
Okay, so you want to give all these, but I'm getting the idea that there's a lot going back of these terrible cuts that we all agree on, but it's all been drawn from the 7% increase on people over 100 grand.
Well,
and new growth as well that could be suspect because of this change in the rates.
It's about doing things in a fairer, more progressive manner. In the budget just gone, Declan, this government chose to put €800 million back in the pockets of, the wealthiest 13% of the population, and at the same time we have people lying on our streets homeless. 146 children presented as homeless in this county last year, and at the same time this government is putting that money back in the pockets of high-end earners. So what we're saying, there's a different way of doing things that prioritises ordinary
Now, the reason
citizens
I
here.
spoke to John Brady, just for our other two candidates here who have been in previously with us, and John hasn't. So that was just John's outline of his policy there. Could I go to Ann Ferris? And you've left the door open in a way for Sinn Fein and other groupings because of the record of Labour over the past 5 years. People are disappointed.
I think, Declan, you're probably right. We're certainly getting some people on the door saying that they're disappointment with the Labour Party in government. However, we're getting a whole lot of other people saying that they feel that they know that it's been a very hard struggle for the Labour Party for the past 5 years, but they also recognise that if the Labour Party hadn't been in government with Fine Gael, that things could have been and probably would have been a hell of a lot worse. Now, I know that John here has had a pop at the Labour Party a few times, and I'm not going to be like that, because I've never personalised any other party or anything like that.
To be fair to him now, he's making a political point about it.
He's making a political point, indeed, but I think that the last time around, John mentioned about that there were posters up saying about child benefit. I think we certainly have learned a lesson from the last election, insofar as that we are not making promises now in this election. We didn't realise, and certainly me as a local representative didn't realise just how bad things were going to be, and we had to make, as a party, very, very hard choices in the last 5 years. I think that we have done quite well in trying to keep core payments of social welfare there, and we've also restored an awful lot of other cuts that had to happen.
Respite care.
Well, there are plans, but you see, Declan, we didn't have a magic wand. We still don't have one, and no party going in now will have a magic wand to cure all the ills. It has to be the last term was a 5-year programme, and following on from now, it will be another 5-year programme, and we are looking to go back into government to complete that. When I was canvassing 5 years ago, I said to people two things: it's not going to be quick, and it's not going to be easy. And I said, we're not going to get out of this in 5 years. It will be a 10-year programme. And
it's more of the same means more of the same. It means that the ESRI said about the last budget that it was unfair to people on lower earnings.
Well, John Fitzgerald from the ESRI came out yesterday and said that the Labour Party manifesto was well costed, well budgeted.
But you had the manifesto the last time, and you didn't manage to bring it to the programme for government.
The ESRI didn't come out the last time and say it, but the point I'm saying is that he is saying it this time. We intend, there is a growth back in the economy. Yes, I agree, not every single family is feeling it yet, but there is definitely a recovery. And there's more people in jobs. There's 1.9 million now people in this country that are employed. We haven't had that rate of employment since 2009. So that means
what sort of jobs are they in? Would you be happy with them?
They're all types of jobs.
We don't have 0-hour contracts, but we have sort of these low-hour contracts.
We don't know
if we're in today or not.
My colleague Jed Nash has done an awful lot of work on that. And also the other thing, we have increased the minimum wage. We have done an awful lot in government, and we want to do more. And I'm asking people to vote for me in County Wicklow and East Carlow to make sure that I'm back in the Dáil, to ensure that there's fairness. I'm a realist, Declan. We are not a party of protest. We know the reality of it, and we know that we have to get back in there and do our very best to protect. I have a constituency office in Bray, the only political party that has one, that's open 5 days a week, and I know that, from the people coming into me, that I want to continue giving that service, and I don't want, after this weekend, to have to close down that office.
Joe Behan, the last time we left just before we went on to a subject about education, and I know you wanted to come back to that. So I don't know if you want anything to add to the other two before you actually say it, but I don't want to forget about the education.
Thanks, Declan, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But just to say that, I know John and Ann very well, and they're fine public representatives. And I think we're all, and everybody who's running for election, tries to do their level best to ensure that they represent the people who elect them. And we all want to see a recovery, and we all want to see it being fair. I don't think that anybody has a monopoly on that, and it's a question of how you arrive at it and how you do it. And my point would be, you mentioned to John at the beginning there, what are you going to do for Wicklow? And I would say that when Wicklow people are voting, what I would ask them to consider is that of the 5 TDs that they send back, that at least one would be somebody who would not be bound by a party whip. In my past, I was bound by a party whip, and I rejected that whip after a particular decision that was made by the Fianna Fáil government at the time. And I would say that for all of the aspirations that we all have here, it will be important to have at least one person in the Dáil who's free to continue to advocate for the issues that concern people in this county. And while everybody chooses their own route as to how they achieve it, I think it's important to have somebody there who will continue to voice the concerns.
Could you get listened to? Could you have any impact being one lone voice?
Well, we'll have to wait until after Friday and see what the people decide right across the country. But I think it's fairly clear, judging on the polls, that there are going to be a significant number of people who are not aligned to any party.
Where would you say your transfer should go? If people want number one job. I'm
giving absolutely no advice to anybody. I have been asked, but I'd be quite happy if people vote for me, Declan, and after that it's up to themselves.
Okay, education.
Getting back to education, we touched on it on the last discussion. We talked about children with special education needs, but there are so many other issues in education that are concerning people at the moment. And I suppose one of them is the whole area of class size, particularly at primary school level, where the class sizes they're gradually coming down, which we welcome, but we need to see a further reduction. And I welcome the fact that most of the parties seem to be saying they're going to do that. But I'd like to see it actually happening in practice, because in my book, education is the key and the foundation for whatever improvements we're going to make in society. So I would say that a primary level class size is a major issue. Provision of proper resources for children with special education needs is vital, and across the whole spectrum of education, no matter whether you look at first level, second level or third level, I think we have to accept as a country, as a nation, as a society, that we need to allocate an adequate level of funding, an adequate percentage of funding across the education spectrum.
Have you costed anything about all this? Because you could be on talking about homelessness and the health service and all the cutbacks that we mentioned with John and Ann there. You're an independent, so you don't have to worry about. You can just advocate and say we should be doing this.
I accept that.
Do you have any taxation idea? Do you think all the rich people should be taxed, or what? Or where would you get money for that?
For example, Declan, there are certainly question marks over the amount of corporation tax that's coming into this state at the moment by the big multinationals, and whether they're actually paying any kind of a fair share relative to other small business owners in terms of the percentage of corporation tax they're paying. I think that's one area that hasn't been mentioned yet.
You'd agree with that, John Brady and Sinn Fein, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, there's huge business out there, and I think they all should be paying their full 12.5 corporation tax.
I think 12.5 should be increased.
No, I think what we want to see is a harmonisation of the corporation tax right across the entire island, and we've moved towards that, a harmonisation. But
because the British have decided that they'll have just
to take up a point that Anne said there about this government trying their best, and absolutely they have tried their best, but people are asking the question, what do Labour actually stand for? They used to stand for
why are you attacking, just as a matter of interest for me and other people, why would you be attacking Labour? Surely the right-wing parties of Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, I don't know, Renew Ireland, they're the targets of the left, surely. Why would you be attacking Labour? They could be your allies
I would love to, Declan, I would love to be able to sit here and say, the left parties are all working together, but the reality here is a vote for the Labour Party is a vote to put Fine Gael back into government, and that is the reality here. We have signed up to the Right to Change movement, which will see the abolition of water charges and the critical investment in all our public services to end the chaos in our housing, to end the chaos in our health service. When today, as we sit here, we have an all-time high. There's 48 people lying on hospital trolleys.
You're not going to get the votes to be in the seats to be in government, John. So who is a vote for Sinn Féin is a vote for Sinn Féin and
a vote for
And
people who have signed up to the Right to Change Charter, who are standing over 105 candidates, Declan. There's 48 people lying on hospital trolleys as we sit here, as a direct result.
Would you endorse a second preference to the other Republican Party, Fianna Fáil?
No, we're saying, look, people need to vote for Right to Change candidates, of which there's 3 here in Wicklow. So I'm saying give John Brady a number 1 vote, and number 2 and 3 for other candidates that have signed up to the Right to Change, and that's calling for an abolition of water charges. But also, it's bigger than that. It's about investing in our public services so that there isn't 48 people lying on hospital trolleys as a direct result of the closure of Loughlinstown Hospital, of which all 5 TDs here in Wicklow supported.
Supported that, Anne? Did you?
Yeah, Declan.
I know there was lots of promises. We had somebody on there, a consultant on from Loughlinstown, who reassured
to
us.
save Loughlinstown.
I think, Declan, I think we spoke about this in depth last week when I was on the programme. Certainly, yes, the 5 TDs did vote to reduce the A&E service in Loughlinstown Hospital.
To close it.
It wasn't to close it, John. Because it operates from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This was to allow then for the people after those hours to go to St. Vincent's Hospital. It also freed up beds and the wards for people who had surgery in St.
And they're all the little things, Anne, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
But what are we going to do about the health service?
Well, indeed, and John does mention about the chaos in our health service and other things. Yes,
you stood over it for 5 years.
We are doing our best, Declan. As I said earlier, we don't have a magic wand. Things are getting better. The health
homelessness has increased.
The health department. John, please.
People lying on trolleys.
John,
it's up 25%.
John,
hold on.
You had your opportunity, John, please. Don't be so rude.
No.
As I said, we had limited resources over the last 5 years, because when we went into government 5 years ago, there wasn't the money to pay for very much longer. There was, I think, 3 months' money left to pay our nurses and our doctors and our guards and our teachers. Since then, we have been working on the recovery by creating jobs, so that there would be more money in the economy, so that things could be better. We have brought in the free medical cards for children under 6, for people over 70.
They're the healthiest, aren't they?
Sorry?
They're the healthiest under 6, aren't they?
But they're not the healthiest, because there are lots of parents out there who have small children and who worry about their children, and especially children, babies and toddlers, who can't convey their illness.
Was that a Fine Gael policy or a Labour policy?
Well, we did have a Minister for Health which is Fine Gael. But what I'm saying to people is to vote for me, to vote for Labour, to go back into government. John here is asking for people to vote for Sinn Fein to go into opposition. There is no point in going into opposition. You need
what
to
is the point of Labour in
to
government?
go back into
what
government to make a change. Because when you're in opposition, you can do nothing but rant and rave and shout and be a party of protest and point out the obvious. We all know what the obvious is. We all know what is wrong. We are trying to get back in there to do what we can.
And Joe Behan, would you vote for any of the policies that are being put forward here as an independent in the Dáil, listening on the merit of John Brady and Ann Ferris?
But a lot of what they've said I would agree with. A lot of their aspirations, I said that at the start, Declan, are aspirations I would have myself. I want to see decent public services for all of the people of this country, paid for through general taxation primarily, and corporation tax and business tax and so on, and that people who can afford to pay the most. But I think also we need to be sure that we have certain values, if you like, that we hold dear, and obviously I think the importance of ensuring that vulnerable people right across the country are protected first and foremost, whether they're elderly people who have suffered enormous cuts in their income over the last number of years, or children with special education needs, or people with disabilities and so on. And I accept.
Is it possible to do? What would you leave out, Joe?
No, but Declan, I was just going to say, I accept the criticism that I don't have a manifesto here costed down to the last detail. But what I do have is a consistency in ensuring that people's voices are going to be heard. If I'm elected, if people decide to vote for me, and if I'm elected, I want to be able to ensure that the kind of things that they have said to all of us, I'm sure, on the campaign trail will be articulated in Dáil Éireann, because at the moment there's a big disconnect between what the people feel on the ground and what's happening in the Dáil. People don't feel their voices are being heard, and I want to make sure their voices are
John,
heard.
we've heard all the things you're concerned about: the health service, the homelessness. You want to restore all those cuts that have been there. And Ferris says they're all necessary and all all that. But a question that constantly comes up about Sinn Féin is connections are not with the paramilitary past or present. I mean, what do you know about that being in Sinn Féin?
Yeah, well, I'm surprised you'd even go there, Declan. You know, I mean,
I'm expected to ask you these things.
Well, you're not expected. I mean, people want to hear about the future, what I want to do to help people out moving forward. If we talk about the past, we're never going to go into the future, you know, so I'm surprised now that you go there.
Will there still be a connection between the Army Council and Sinn Féin in the future?
Declan,
there's this question for you in the future.
I'm surprised at you now. I really am. I'm coming in here to talk. I'm coming in here to talk about creating sustainable, well-paid jobs for the people in Wicklow. I'm talking about ending the housing crisis. I'm talking about, you know, reversing the cuts.
Do you know anything about a current connection between Sinn Féin and the Provisional
No, Declan,
Army?
Look, I'm a supporter of the Good Friday Agreement, and I'm sure you supported the Good Friday Agreement as well. And things have moved on, and thankfully we're in a better place now. And I want to see a better, fairer society right across Wicklow. You know, if you
but
and others
instances come up, John. Things like the Paul Quinn murder, where he was taken from north of the border by the family believe, and others around believe Republicans identified with Republicans.
Anyone that has any information needs to bring that forward. Needs to bring all that forward to the Gardai, Declan. You know, I want to talk about the likes of Jonathan Corey. Jonathan Corey, a homeless man that died sleeping on the streets of Dublin. Another man here, Paul Doyle, who died homeless on the streets of Brady. They're the issues that, you know, people are talking to me about, Declan. We've moved on. There's a peace process there, thankfully, that Sinn Féin have been instrumental in delivering for, you know, the people right across the entire island. If you and others want to keep looking back, that's not what people on the ground are saying, Declan. The real issues there are how people are going to put the next meal on their table, and they're the issues that concern me.
Just on the looking back, I think when we talked about this government and what its performance was, you actually went back further to Fianna Fáil. So there's no monopoly on looking back, John.
Well, no, it's important to know where we came from, Declan, you know, and you know, this government is saying they inherited a mess, of which they did, and it's important to point out that Fianna Fáil are certainly not squeaky clean in all of this. We have Micheál Martin, who sat around the cabinet table and is responsible for an awful lot of what this government is implementing. Indeed, you know, Fianna Fáil are the architects of water charges. You know, now they're flip-flopping on the issue. Some candidates are saying they're going to abolish it, but the party policy is there that they're going to suspend it. So it's important to point out.
That's fine, and we've gone over the other issue. But at least I brought it up to you, and you've answered. You don't have any money from the Northern Bank robbery to fund any of this or anything like that, do you? Or that you wouldn't answer that question?
Declan, you know, I'm really surprised now. I came in here to talk about the future. You know, and that's what people want to hear. You know, you're not asking Labour Party candidates about their past connections in the Workers' Party and printing presses that were found in Gardiner Place, and, you know, whether, you know,
and anything back there
whether
like
election campaigns were funded by
you were linked with Democratic
£5
Left, the Workers' Party.
And
in fairness to John, I'll put that.
Of course it was, and indeed down the years, not in the last previous maybe 10 years have we were asked those questions. That is history. Everybody has history. But what I am worried, Declan, as you mentioned about the future, what I am worried about is that Sinn Féin want to abolish the Special Criminal Court, which is really a really dangerous move, in my opinion.
They're not alone in that, no.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just talking about Sinn Féin because John here wants to talk about Labour Party. I'm very, very concerned about that. I'm very concerned about the people who are calling for it. And I just want to say, Declan, that I wrote an article for one of the local papers last week, which was published. The day after I wrote that article, I received a death threat from a Sinn Féin supporter. I don't know where he lives. I have it here. I have a screenshot of the Facebook death threat. And excuse my language, it says, we will stone that cunt to death, the dirty slut. I have it here.
You've no evidence. You've no evidence that anybody connected with John Brady has anything to do with that.
I'm sure Ann has gone to the Gardai with that.
But I didn't say John Brady. Yes, I've been in touch with the Gardai. Yeah. I did not say John Brady. I said he has a connection to Sinn Féin because because it's all over his Facebook. It's not scurrilous. What is scurrilous, John Brady? Is that I am receiving this kind of stuff on Facebook, and I'll tell you, Declan.
But let me. I take the point, John. Would you like to disown this and disown what happened to Regina Doherty on LMFM?
Absolutely. Anyone that makes any threats of any description to any candidate from any political party, you know, needs to be dealt with.
And
they need to be brought. They need to be brought before the courts. They need to be charged. Anyone that makes that. But come on.
Would you disassociate yourself from that sort of abuse to any other candidate from any Sinn Féin member? You think they should leave Sinn Féin?
Declan, I respect any candidate from any party that puts their name forward.
Should leave Sinn Féin?
Declan, there's no information here to say that was a member of Sinn Féin. None whatsoever. And Declan is saying...
I said to you, hypothetically, if they were Sinn Féin, is there a place for them in Sinn Féin?
No, absolutely not, Declan. You know, this is silly talk here now. You know,
I don't think it's silly. This is silly. That no, this is criminal court.
Well, hold on. In 2009, in 2009, and maybe Anne will answer this. In 2009, our former party colleague Liz McManus voted against the extension of the powers of the Special Criminal Court that would give them the powers to actually go in and deal with the real.
I'm going to pause it now and let the three of you come back and make your pitch to the people
Pat Rabbit, Joe Costello and that have spoken. No, they're not people in the past. They're still in your party. They're still in your party. They're still in your party. They have voted and spoke openly.
Inter-Republican rivalries. We're going to stop it there now and let you come back with your pieces in just a second. Okay. And finally, this morning, with three candidates here for you to vote on for the general election, we have John Brady of Sinn Féin, Ann Ferris from the Labour Party, and Joe Behan, Independent. Joe, just finally, why should people vote for you?
Because I listen, because I want to take on board their concerns, because many people throughout this county, whether they're elderly, parents of children with special education needs, people who are looking for a job, people whose children have had to emigrate, whatever the case is, I've listened to what they've said to me over the last 3 months. I want to make sure that their voices, and I will make sure, if I'm elected, their voices are heard on the floor of Dáil Éireann.
Ann Ferris?
Declan, I think people should vote for me.